The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
We are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of the people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are multi-dimensional creators, creating both our own personal experience and our collective experience moment to moment. We invite you to join us as we reawaken this technology through experiment and experience our power to create and manifest.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Collective Imagination Show for this week and our relaunch with old friends. So I want to welcome everybody to Barbara Karnes. This is so much fun, and we get to see each other while we're doing this.
I know. After all these years, everybody finally knows what I look like.
And look at you, you look great.
Thank you.
So, Collective Imagination, this has been a journey for us for quite a few years. Humble beginnings, going back to Oculus radio days. And I know you've got a little bit of a spiel about the history of the show. So,
You want me just to go ahead with it then? Okay. Let me put on my specs because I did want to share a little bit of history just to bring everyone up to speed. The Collective Imagination never went anywhere. It just is going back to its original roots. And I wanted everyone to know where we started. Lisa actually started this with David O'Brien and Octavia McMahon. Is that right? Is that how you pronounce Octavia's last name? And they started it on June the 7th of 2012. And I had just met Lisa at that time, thereabouts. And so I joined the following week on June the 13th. Now, through the end of July, the last show, which was weekly and 3 hours long, I remember those, was on July the 25th. The following week, which in the States was the last day of July, and in Australia was the first day of August, Lisa launched it on her own as the Collective Imagination. And I believe we went to 2 hours at that point, and we had Lisa, myself, Bob Wright, and I believe we quickly brought on, if not from that first show, Michael Monk and Peter Shelton. And at the end of each show, we did a meditation that was led by Michael, and then Peter, basically Michael would ground us and Peter would then lift us up and out. We had some amazing successes with that. What we did was we would set a goal, ask the folks in the chat what they wanted to manifest, what they wanted to bring our energy together collectively to create. And then we would come back the following week and spend the first part of the show talking about how successful that was, and if people, could show us evidence, which in many cases they did. Those shows actually all exist on Blog Talk Radio. So if anyone wants to go back all the way to that very first debut show on June the 7th, that one would be under Oculus Radio, and then the rest of them would be under, it's now 5D Media Network. But we started when we went to the Collective Imagination as Lisa's own vehicle. We also came up with a sigil. Now, what I wanted to, or a logo, what I wanted to do now was to show everyone that logo and talk a little bit about it just for a couple of minutes. So let me share my screen.
It was at a time where we were just starting to look into sigils and what they were and the tool that they were for focus for manifestation. And there is magic in these things.
Right, which as a matter of fact, I think was David's idea. David had us do some sigils for something that they were doing on the Oculus radio network. And so we figured we're going to come up with a logo. Why not make it a sigil? So the logo that you see in front of you actually contains the following words: the collective imagination, where magic happens. Now, what you do to create a sigil is you take out all the vowels, you take out all the duplicate letters, and then you just play until you come up with something interesting. So, and then it's supposed to contain the essence of, or the magic of, that phrase. So, where magic happens is exactly what took place. Now, I was telling Lisa just before the show that if I was going to do it again, I probably would have tempered that a little bit, and instead of just using the global word magic, which was spelled M-A-G-I-C-K, I probably would have put the word, positive or, high ascending or something, because what I believe it did was it allowed all magic, all creativity, from the top to the bottom of the bottom, and everything in between. But that's what that represents. And I have found, as Lisa has, that it works. So sigils, we now have 3 years worth of evidence to prove that sigils work. They're effective. So look them up, make one if you want to, and just be really careful what you have it say. Now let me just stop sharing that for a moment. Now, the collective imagination, we had weekly guests, and that continued through and we had some amazing people, by the way. That continued through the middle of December, where Lisa came up with the idea of having a countdown. And it was called The Countdown. It was every day. I think, wasn't it 12 days, Lisa? From the 12th to the 26th or something like that? Or the 12th to the 24th?
It was from the 12th to the 21st.
Yeah, 12th to the 21st.
Leading up to the 21st of December, yeah.
And we turned it into an event. And every day we had a different speaker, but we had our main folks as well. By this time now, Chris Hales had joined, and Michael and Peter had moved on. So now it was Lisa, myself, Bob Wright, and Chris Hales. And each night we had a different speaker, and they were talking about what they thought the 2012 event was going to be. And it was powerful and amazing, and our audience just blew up. We had tens of thousands. I think, I can't remember who shared this with us, but at one point we had hundreds of thousands of people listening to the show live and in the archive. It just was amazing. And it was extremely powerful, which also goes back to the sigil of bringing magic into this event. That was July, August, September, October, November, December. Within 5 months, we had turned the collective imagination into a powerhouse of an audience, of topics, and of manifestation, which was what we originally wanted. We wanted to bring everyone's energy together collectively to create. We took a hiatus for, I think it was a couple of weeks, and when we came back, Lisa had been introduced to some folks that y'all know, and OPPT became a side conversation of the collective imagination. And instantly, it was so well received. The audience just ate it up like chocolate cake, that they created an additional show. And by now, 5D Media Network had launched, and Lisa was bringing on many, many shows, and I believe almost every night there was a different show. And again, all of those old shows, and many of those people were introduced to Lisa through being in the chat room and participating and calling in to the collective imagination. And ultimately they launched their own shows, and many of them to this day have gone into various broadcasting, whether it's YouTube videos or their own radio shows, their own radio networks. It was an amazingly powerful event that has now permeated the lexicon. But then OPPT came into it, and all the additional shows came in, and then that led to the Opal Tour, and the Collective Imagination show continued throughout this whole process, but it did change from that hiatus from that point forward. It really, the characteristic that I think that migrated away was the pooling of the collective energy to manifest the world that we want to live in, to join our energy to create and make changes that we all are looking for in the world that we live. Then Lisa started the One People's Network, and eventually brought Michael Monk back on, who did some amazing work with Lisa to create and begin to manifest again and bring it back to square. Now, Michael again has moved on, and Lisa and I got to talking, and we thought that we would just bring it all the way back to home. And from that very first debut show, and the original intent, which was to pool our energy together and make magic happen. And so that's where we are today.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
And we've actually got some people joining us today as a part of our coming home. It feels like coming home, this show. We're doing it with you. It's really, really nice. We have Clara St Louis, who I will bring out shortly. I know Lily's in the background there somewhere. And we also have Jeff, of course, in the background, helping us out with the chat room and lending his energy to this, being very supportive. Thank you, Jeff. Some people who, Jeff and Lily have become friends as well. And we talk on a regular basis. And I know we have very similar thoughts on what we can do, what we're here to do, how we can do it, what's important right now. So I'm looking forward to being able to pull all these new energies together. One of the things I have learned over the last couple of years is just how powerful and sort of it never ceases. Like when you bring individuals together, and I remember hearing about all of this back when I was starting to learn about the 2012 calendar and Mayan cosmology and all of that. Everybody has a unique energetic signature, and when you bring people together, that forms its own unique energetic signature. And
looks like you're breaking up a little bit, Lisa.
it's something that never ceases.
Well, I'll tell you what, while Lisa, it looks like her screen is frozen.
Always go back to it.
Hey, Lisa, you may want to back up a few sentences because not only did you go robo, but your screen looks to be frozen.
You can tune into that particular energetic that's been used over the last couple of years in situations where bringing certain people.
Oh, I think. Hi, it's the Barbara Show. Well, while we're waiting for Lisa to come back, let me just share with you that I've had some amazing. Oh, there she is. I shall pass it back to you, hon. But you may want to back up a few sentences because we lost you for a bit. Your screen froze and you went robo. And she's frozen again. So I'm still here.
Okay.
Why don't you try and talk again, Lisa, so we can see if you're back. Sounds like one of those kids' keyboards, Well, I'll just talk for a few minutes. Hey, Lisa, we can't hear you.
what I was saying was every time we come together with a group of individuals, we're creating. There we go.
We lost you again.
This is not funny. I do not consider.
Well, I'll tell you, let me just share something here. I can tell you that my own personal experience with manifestation since we started this project has skyrocketed. Today, I am house sitting for a couple in Southern Arizona, and I could go into all the details, but I'm just trying to fill some time while Lisa comes back. Everything that I have been looking to manifest in the last few years exists in this environment. It's as if this environment is the manifestation. And I'm manifesting instantly many things. People, resources. I don't really need that much money. Most of the money comes to me from other sources, or I just get things gifted to me, like this opportunity to stay in this amazing home. Now, this home is a mini version. Oops, there she is. You want to try her again, Lisa? I guess maybe she's not ready. This home is a mini version of one that I actually drew out as someplace I wanted to live years ago. I have synchronicities happening consistently all the time. I'm writing something and somebody says exactly what I'm writing. And it isn't just occasionally, it's all day, every day, and I'm constantly laughing about it. I've had hummingbirds flying, hovering above my head. And I just stand there in awe and I'm nowhere near a plant or anything. In one case, I was in the middle of the street. So animals seem to be extremely receptive to whatever energy is going on. And I'm grateful every day for the tools that we learned and began to work with way back 3 years ago, because today I am living a life that is exactly that, one that is manifested from my own creation. And I've pooled my energy with many other people and found that we're getting some of the same results. So with that said, let's give Lisa another try.
I've managed to tap into a different internet connection, so we'll see how this one goes. Hopefully stronger. I don't know what you heard, but basically what I'm getting to is that every time we bring people together, we create a whole new energetic signature to play with. And I'm looking forward to the combination that we're going to, start to bring together over the next few weeks. So without any further ado, let's bring out Clara. Clara, welcome.
Hi, there I am. Hi, nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Ages.
It's been minutes. Like I said to Biggie, it's been absolutely minutes since I've seen you. But that's great. You're terrific. And I like talking to you.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Now, you caught my attention because you co-authored a book called The Dangerous Imagination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
how about that? Well, go ahead.
Dangerous to live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how about that? Well, I guess that's as good a place to start as any is to explain the title a little bit. I didn't know that's what I was writing when I started it, but that's how things happen anyway. I mostly was trying to figure out why it was that, your audience may or may not know at this point, you may or may not know at this point, that I was deeply involved in researching what was going on in the skies, which actually started with electromagnetic weapons, which actually started with the death of my mom, who'd worked for the U.S. Navy and had a very high security clearance. And that's sort of that particular catastrophe is what kicked me off into this investigation. And a couple of years did go by. And I was being interviewed about that book when I worked for the People's Voice. And was being asked the same questions that I'd been asked over and over. Primarily, what's the difference between a contrail and a chemtrail? And too many people would have to know about it for this to be happening. And those two questions together added up for me. In that moment, you know, those laser moments when you sort of float above what's going on and you go, oh, look at that. Oh, look what that is. And I said, that's a meme. That's a hamster wheel. Look at that. And because we can't ever stop asking that set of questions, you know, year after year after year. So it was at that time I decided I really wanted to get to the bottom of that. I wanted to know why we couldn't seem to stop asking the same questions, because most human beings are reasonably intelligent folks with 2 eyes and 2 ears and, you know, the visuals and the senses and everything, and yet we can't get past this sort of these obvious questions that are really easy to answer. And at that time, I did know Harold Kautzvella, who's my writing partner on that particular book, because he had translated The Sun Thief for me, which is a treatment of, amongst other things, it's a treatment of what happened with my mom and my initial search to find out what's going on. And we were lecturing together, and I in Germany one March, and I said, Harold, I just feel I do everything intuitively, which you are learning when you talk to me. It's kind of like, what's she saying? What's she saying? But I just knew that Harold and I needed to pull something together, do something together. And so I started to investigate these things. And actually, once I realized the depth and the breadth and the complete saturation of mind control practices that were in place, it was very clear to me, because of the other sorts of work that I do, which is Waldorf teaching and writing and raising 3 children and those sorts of things, a lot of creative things and a lot of protective things for children, and working in a very protective pedagogy. It was actually set up to protect children from the brainwashing automaton Prussian education system that was in place, literally brought by Rudolf Steiner, and he said in 1919, and he said, look, if we don't put something up to guard children, if we let education continue the way it's going, we're cooked. It's that simple. It's that duality again that I was talking about the other night. One must have the other side, you know, or we're not going to go anywhere. So because of other things that I was doing, I looked at what was in front of me and I thought, oh my God, it's the imagination they're after. It is our imagination. And then I looked sort of in my inner eye, in myself, and I realized that essentially what I was looking at was our power, which is the imagination, sort of buried under this demolition of rubble, you know, that had been brought down on it, especially over the course of the 20th century. And then, you know, I realized that I'm joining a group of people who are plugged into this collective consciousness, who are sort of throwing these rocks off the pile to try to release and free our imagination again. And we are being helped because we are helping ourselves. We're also in there with our imaginations. I mean, we own them. They belong to us just because, you know, just because the predator, I'm going to use that phrase because for me, it's the best phrase. And I suppose many people who've thought deeply about this could have their own word for that, and that's fine. But for me, it's a predator. It's because I feel very strongly that something wants more than anything to gain access to and be able to use our imaginations. Yeah? I feel I've come to the conclusion from writing this book, which is what happens to all of us who kind of do these investigations and begin to write, and all of us, we get as much as we give or more, right? But I've come to the conclusion that our imagination is actually the translator. And you say this all the time. When you talk about manifesting, you know, it's not really something I talk about, although I know people who talk about it. Harold talks about it all the time. But for me, it's the words I chose to use were that our imagination is the translator between the morphogenic field, which is the Ur, and that's a word that I love and I will try to explain, but it's German and I don't think there's really any translation for that, and the material plane, at the organic hologram that we are in. Yes? Yeah, the Ur. Let me talk about the Ur real quick so that we can move on, but that's actually my favorite word in the whole wide world. It's just 2 letters, U-R, okay? Ur, it is, to say that it's the prototype is really selling it short. It is much deeper than that. It is the stuff of which, I want to say everything is made, but I also want to say very clearly, it is the stuff of which we make everything, because we really do have to claim that. That's what we do. That's why we're here. I'm positive of that. So the imagination became a very, it's like my sword, you know, it's like what goes in front of me. For you as well, it's what goes before us, this idea of the imagination, this reality of the imagination, yeah? And realizing that I was also doing this Waldorf teaching in the United Kingdom, they call it Steiner teaching, which is great, but and that's set up to guard the imagination of children almost entirely, is what it's set up to do, to keep the right and left hemispheres talking to each other. And we have this pedagogy and these people who are dedicated to doing this kind of, you know, sort of forming themselves into a circle and keeping the hurricane behind us as much as we can of 20th century, 21st century. I mean, there's a lot to keep at bay, isn't there, to protect the children as they're incarnating and giving them full access to their imaginations as they grow and when they're adults. So anyway, that's a lot. Did you want to say anything?
Well, I was just going to say I'm a little familiar with the Steiner stuff because my eldest 2 went to a Steiner preschool and then homeschooled using all the Steiner tools.
Yeah. Oh, you do know it then. You know it inside out.
Well, it's been a while.
You know, homeschoolers are in the front lines. They really are. I just said this on a show I did. Homeschoolers really are in the front lines right now. Because the options are what, right? The options are leave your child in a state-run school, which is, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. Or homeschool them, or find an alternative pedagogy going on somewhere. But you know what? Those things cost money as well. And maybe your situation is going to be your situation. And I've actually homeschooled my children a time or 2 as well, because it just was the right thing for the situation. So, you know, in Germany, for example, you probably already know this, but in Germany, it's illegal to homeschool. The social services will take your child away for homeschooling.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, you must. I know a couple people who have fled the country so they can homeschool. They've had to flee a freaking country. Okay. So in that situation, you have to back the alternative pedagogies because you don't have a choice. But what does that tell you? The last thing in the world they want is for parents to take control of their children's lives. Now that they've got the children away from us, which is the first chapter, some of the first chapter of Dangerous Imagination was the effort to get the kids away from their parents, you know, so that they could create this massive vacuum, fill it with the government, fill it with, you know, the church, whatever authoritarian, you know, or all of the above, or the media, anything that they could put in there to direct their child that wasn't about their parents. In fact, the Address of the German Nation, which came out around 1818 by Johann Fichte, one of the single most important documents ever written and spread, was in response to the Prussian army's loss to Napoleon in 1806, in which case the King of Prussia wanted something, turned out to be a schooling system, that would get his population back under control. And Fichte wrote that it was obvious that the German parents could no longer be trusted with their children. That was clear because they had lost this battle, okay? Yes. And no despot can have that happen. So the children needed to be removed from their parents early and warehoused in schools. We have this now. This is what our children are for the most part enduring right now. And taught that the highest good was to die for their nation. And I can certainly see that. I mean, the United States is saturated in that sentiment, isn't it? So most countries are saturated in that sentiment because that's that's nationalism. I don't know how it is down there. You're in Australia. Would you say that's true?
The whole. I mean, we have a strong what we call digger sentimentality, but I would say the patriotism that is so strong in the United States, it's nowhere near that here.
Yeah, good.
But that pride, dying for your country.
Hey, keep that. Keep that. Yeah, well, that's because the Tavistock Institute, if I may, and some other entities, their goal, their job with the United States was to make us the world's military arm. And in order to do that, they really had to work on us. They really had to work on us hard. They had to close us off.
Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't get that one.
All of this is evidence. It's all evidence of the power of our imagination. That so much has been implemented in order to suppress it, to distort it, to manipulate it.
Right.
Because it's certainly my feeling that it is our collective imagination, the collective imagination of humanity that is creating the whole thing.
Exactly. So if they can convince us, I mean, this is a way to harness our imagination and use it to their ends. Yes, absolutely. And frankly, one of the things I say about this to begin with is the reason this happened is because some of the soldiers on the front lines in that particular battle turned around and went home. They could imagine something different. They could imagine not being there. They could imagine going home and living really. Okay. So that you can say, I can imagine to just, I mean, please. It's so, I mean, I don't want to say exciting, but don't you feel sort of filled up when you think about things like being able to say, I can imagine something different, or I imagine it should be that way, or I imagine, we say that all the time. Yes, but we're led because we're dulled here, to say it in inappropriate ways. And we could stop doing that. That's easy. I mean, that's easy enough. But it's work, isn't it?
It is.
It is work.
And what we've got, I don't want to leave them hanging for too long. So while I know that I want to say hi to Lily.
I'm so excited she's here.
She's here twice somehow, but she's here. And hello to Jeff as well. If either of you would like to come out, you're welcome. And Barbara, some of these tools you and I have talked about over the years, but I mean, the law of attraction is really, kind of like how to manifest and create for dummies. What's been put out there. But it is, a lot of the material that's been put out there is a great opener and a great introduction to how to capture your imagination and use it for yourself. There's been some great tools that I've come across over the years. And my favourites are absolutely Neville Goddard, Florence Scovel-Shinn, and some other sort of obscure bits and pieces. Actually, I've got one here. There's this little book. It's called It Works. That's all it's called. And it's got...
And it does.
28 pages. And that includes all the, promo stuff. And it's called The Famous Little Red Book That Makes Your Dreams Come True. I don't even know where I got it. It's one of those.
You manifested it, dude.
And I did. I've had it for years. And essentially it's three steps that says, where are they? Step one is to write down what you want to manifest, whether it's material things, emotional, spiritual, whatever. Just write a list, and you write them in order of priority, and then you read the list. Rule number 2. Number 1 is just write the list. Rule number 2 is to read the list out to yourself morning, noon, and night. And rule number 3 is to think about the list as often as possible. And that's it. And it's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just about putting yourself, reminding yourself, and giving yourself as much detail as possible when you write your list.
Right.
And bringing yourself back to focus, back to center. There's been some great little tools that have been put out there over the last 120 years, I think. And the best stuff is actually from about 100 years ago. More detail, more in depth, more powerful than a lot of what's been put out in the last 20 years. But our imagination, the power of it when you are centered and in a positive place about what it is you're visualizing and with your intent, it cannot be underestimated.
Right. Well, I think it depends on what your motivation is always. Your motivation has to be good and clear. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the things, well, a couple of the things I was thinking of when you were talking was, I remember one of the things that I was always taught was that if you wanted something to happen, you did have to say it out loud. And they used to say, if you say it out loud, the angels will hear you. Well, okay, maybe. And also your higher self will hear you. You know, something will happen if you say things out loud, okay? I remember just anecdotally, when my oldest son was in class 1, first grade, he'd been to a Steiner's kindergarten in Hawaii. I mean, talk about idyllic, right? And then I put him in a public school in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I thought to myself, I hate this. I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. And then I said to myself out loud one day, God, I wonder if I should become a Waldorf teacher. You never say stuff like that out loud unless you really want it to happen. So 6 months later, here I am trundling through Vermont on my way to New Hampshire with all my crap in the back of a U-Haul, you know what I mean? On my way to be trained as a teacher. That actually is how it happens. The other thing I was thinking when you were talking about this earlier, because I know that you have a very specific purpose. You have a very specific purpose that you are really trying to follow, and that's your job right now. And you know what I mean? It's really clear that this is your path. It's your job to bring this. And so one of the things I was thinking was I needed to tell you that 2 things. One of the things that's in my first chapter in the book was that I came to understand very deeply was that if you take the word, you know this, if you take the word imagination apart, you have I mage in, you have the magician, which is also the first tarot card, which is something I did study along the way as part of something else. Of course, it all comes together, doesn't it? But one of the best books I came across was called Meditating on the Tarot, A Journey into Hermeticism. All right. And the first, I don't know if you know this book, it's about this thick, and it's by Anonymous. I know, we all know who it was by, but he said Anonymous, yeah. And the first tarot card, the first arcana is the Magician. I went through that book, arcana by arcana by arcana by arcana, very briefly, one time skimmed through the Devil card and then moved on because it's not good to meditate on that card at all. But the first card is absolutely brilliant. First of all, it shows the magician on a tightrope, yeah, with a lemniscate for a hat, which is eternity, and balance, 2 sides, the duality. And it also talks about, I mean, I recommend that book to all of you. It also talks about that the fact that the magician walks across this tightrope with the seeds of his imbalance inside his balance. He carries the seeds of his imbalance inside his balance. And so it's always about keeping that tension in order to use your imagination. Does that, you know what I mean? So there are things like that I used to meditate about, yeah.
Well, because living inside that tension is a really hard place to be. So
it is exhausting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go. Sometimes you have to go through it to get to the other side, where what you really want is waiting for you. And if you don't have the courage to go through that, you won't get to the quickest route to what you're trying to reach.
So the other side of the tightrope, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you?
It's that place between where you are and the appearances of where you are.
Yeah.
And seeing where you want to be, and sort of believing going to, and believe spite of appearances, and holding that vision and that tension, that space of tension in between. It can be tricky.
Absolutely tricky. You've got to hold that moment. You've got to hold that moment. You've got to hold that focus all the way. And sometimes that tightrope is a long ass tightrope all the way across. But also part of our power is one of our senses. We have way more than 5 senses. I'm sure you know that too. At least 12. Okay, that's what Steiner used to talk about, was the 12. And one of those senses is called the sense of movement. And that is not even close to what you think it is just by its description. That is that we throw ourselves where we want to go, and then we bring our bodies to that. And that is actually one of our senses. So, I think it's worth investigating all of those senses as well, because they will tell you have 5. Does that not limit your imagination? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what you said earlier about when we speak out loud, because that's where I want to get to in this show as well, is the understanding that, for me anyway, creation happens from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And the inside is your imagination and your intent and your thoughts. Mm-hmm. And the outside being the words you speak and the actions you take.
Right.
And the way you feel.
The way you feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's that driving, motivating intent.
Yes.
Tied up with emotions.
Right.
So when we get to that point later in the show, we will actually be speaking out loud. And it's something that I'm aware of when I do the other shows. Like the One People show is talking about what could be perceived as all the negativity in the world, but coming from a place of just shining a light on it and being wary of the way we speak about it and the energy put into the way we speak about it. I am very, I don't come from, and I don't want to come from, I hope I never come from a place of fear about all of that stuff. Because the whole idea of the show is to take all of that out of it. And by speaking and by saying, I see you, that's just shining a huge light on it and infusing it with either zero emotion or positive emotion that how can I put it? That will take out the negativity, overcoming positive energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
When you do the show of how I speak about it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Lisa, because there's so many negative things that get introduced into your holographic reality. And I think many of them are introduced by those powers she was talking about to stop us from moving forward. And if you recognize that, you can be more the observer and just go, isn't that interesting? And have no emotion about it whatsoever, but recognize that it's necessary to be there for you to move through to get to wherever it is that you're going.
Right. Speaking of just before I forget about it, I want to mention really quickly, because I think it's a tremendously interesting little factoid. But this book that I was talking about, Meditations on the Tarot, A Journey Toward Hermeticism, was always on Pope John Paul II's desk. There are photographs of this. There was always a copy of that book on his desk. Now, why do you think that would be? Right?
Because it works, because it's powerful.
Because it works for and against. You know what I mean? And these are the powers that are constantly meditating on these sorts of things so that, they can make decisions about disrupting our imaginations as well. So I just think that's a pretty fun, I mean, I call that a fun fact, because you look at photographs of John Paul, you can find all kinds of photographs of his desk, and there's always a copy of that book on his desk. So there you go.
Well, and I love the way that you break down the word imagine.
Yeah.
I heard you say that in a recent interview that I heard on YouTube, and I looked it up. I thought, well, what does Madge mean? And to me, after I realized Madge meant like magic, I jump into magic. I jump inside myself towards everything that I can create. It's like I can visualize myself jumping into a pool of my own creativity. I loved that, and I appreciate, I'm 56, so that's the first time I'd ever heard that word broken up that way, and it really changed my perspective.
Yes. It was through this book that I realized that as well. That was new for me too. But once you have that, you have lots, don't you? You have a big bag all of a sudden of stuff. So anyway, yeah, the meditations on the tarot cards, we're all coming. It's one of the most fascinating things for me about this. And one of the reasons I'm so glad that I was invited on this show is that there are so many people out there pushing the boundaries of this subject. It's just in every way. You come with your own biography, you come with your own motivations, you come, if I can be so bold, I think you come with, when Lisa was talking about motivation and how she goes forward with the imagination, and you as well, you know what I was thinking, strangely enough? I was wondering what sign she was. Isn't that odd? Because I know I am a Virgo with a Cancer rising, so everything's about service for me, right? So my motives are always going to be about, well, how can I do this and put it in the service of humanity and other people and the children and blah, blah, blah. But other people come with, totally legitimate motivations that have to do with their incarnation this time. Yeah. And so we have 12 or 13. Some people say 13. Gestures.
Your reference.
Yeah. 13 gestures filling out the spokes of this thing, this wheel that is the imagination. So for me, I love listening to other people's motivations of why they're doing what they're doing in these investigations.
Yeah, Lisa, I don't think she heard you, but I'd be curious. Don't tell her again.
Okay.
What do you think her sign is?
Leo.
That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Rawr.
Yeah, that's funny.
Is it? I got it. And Barbara, what are you? Tell me.
What do you think I am?
Capricorn or Pisces?
Close, but I'm Aquarius.
Yeah, well, yeah, very close. Okay. Anyway, but so I think that's part of it. I think that, the Vatican pays very close attention to astrology, my friends. Billionaires do too. And so should we. It matters. It does matter. Absolutely. Not the daily stuff that you might read in the newspaper. That's not what I mean at all. But I'm lucky enough to live with a man. My husband is among other things, he's an extremely talented astrologer. So I've been able to learn a lot about that. And this
I found that as a Leo, there's a huge difference between July Leos and August Leos.
Oh, there so is a difference. Yes. Are you? You're July.
I'm a July Leo.
You are. You're a July. I knew it. Yeah.
I've also got two daughters who are July Leos. We're all in the 5 days of each other.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that actually is the same. That's the same as me, my son, and my mother. We're all Aquarius within just a few days of each other, obviously different years, but all within that same tiny little spectrum. And I always thought that was fascinating.
It is fascinating. It really is. It says something about what you're here collectively to do, because these nuclear families, these are agreements and contracts and spiritual agreements that are hugely important. They're hugely important. We help each other. We manifest, we incarnate into these, whatever incarnation we're in at any given moment with the parts. Yes, the parts are in place and we're all playing a part for each other as well. So Anyway, yeah, I'm a September Virgo, so there's a big difference between a Sepian and Augie as well. So, right? Are you January?
Lily's in the background and has a couple of questions. I just wanted to
Yeah.
give her a chance to ask.
Where is she?
Lily. Lily. Earth calling Lily.
Hi.
Hey, there she is.
Hi, Kara. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara. Oh, thank you for letting me ask some questions.
Please.
No,
Um,
thank you.
Ladies, it's a beautiful show. Thank you. I just, well, maybe a little statement before my question. Our full body intelligence and our whole body intelligence is something that we need to get into when it comes to collective imagination, meaning that how you ladies see that, how we can use that, it means every sense of our body. I know that a lot of people think that imagination can only be what we visualize, but what are those other senses that you Cara talk about, like 12 other, senses that we have? Those are all, to me, all part of our whole body intelligence, our complete human being. So I would love for you and Barbara and Lisa to maybe try to go into all those other senses so we can include them in our collective imagination. So we do use all of it.
Absolutely.
Something.
I'm pulling them up so I don't forget any of them. All right. And I want to get them in the right order too.
Okay.
All right.
And what was your question then, darling?
So my question is, can we maybe go into the list of all those other senses that we have, and because we know about few of them, so I would love for
Yes.
Cara to maybe list them and go into them a little bit more and discuss those ones that we really don't know much about.
I would love to, and I'm pulling them up right now because I don't want to forget any of them. They go in a circle. You can make a circle out of them. Surprise, surprise. That go from the three most basic senses. And by the way, these primary senses are the ones being most injured by the electromagnetics that we're living in. I noticed that as a teacher, and we're trying to overcome those. Overcome is I guess a decent word. I'm noticing that the sense of movement is tremendously injured in children due to the demonic sort of levels of electromagnetics that we're resonating with, and even in utero. And so they're coming out with these sort of injured senses of movement. And because of that, we're not necessarily able to expect some of the things that we would have expected 14 or 15 years ago from children to automatically know. For example, we're born with this idea very much of a circle inside of us, which is one of the reasons that children play ring games, or you can expect them to make a circle and quite readily and quite soon after you start trying to teach them that, they know what that is. And then you can ask them to make a good circle, make a perfect circle, and they look around, and they see each other, and they have this inner sense of what that is inside them. That's very human. But children with an injured sense of movement, which is one of the first three senses, can't do that. The class I'm working with right now took a couple of years to get them, and some serious work with a eurythmist to get them to be able to make a circle. And they're 9 years old. So for me, it was this coming up against children who really are, that our neurology is being affected and changed actually by the frequencies that we're encountering, because they're not natural. They're not what we resonate with. So let me see if I can get started on this list here for Lily. Okay, the first sense is the sense of touch. Can I just read a little bit? That would be good, I think. Touch is easily recognized as a sense in its own right, and so needs little introduction. We all know about the sense of touch, but Nature is the touch resource. It provides an endless variety of touch experiences. Touch can teach through unpleasantness as well. The sense of touch, by the way, is one of the reasons that it's really nice to bundle children up when they're babies. They come out of the womb, and it's not necessarily the best thing for them to sort of let them freeform. I let my children do that because I didn't know any of this stuff when my babies were born. But traditionally, Native cultures, Native American cultures for sure, will bundle children up quite tightly. And that is because that teaches them once they're out of the womb where they leave off and other things begin. I mean, it's really that simple. I'm here and other things are outside my skin. That's something that we actually have to learn. Okay, so that's what the sense of touch is about. All right, and if you need to look these up, Rudolf Steiner, 12 senses, please do. I encourage you. The sense of life, all right? This one needs a little more justification, it says. There are metabolic senses that are increasingly being identified with physiology, a diverse group from bladder stretch to cerebral spinal pH. Presently, they are a growing but disconnected group. Okay, whether or not they will be seen as one whole sense that informs us if we are well or not is another matter. So the sense of life, together, these would become part of Steiner's sense of life, and just like the concept of the life body, it's connected more to the whole than the part. That this means it senses the whole process in time within the human body and not individual steps. So time factors or process begin to be relevant or important. So the sense of life, encountering oneself in the medium of time, going through, what we might as adults with, a more abstract ability to think about these things. We might think about that as the film reel that's running one piece at a time. But this is the sense of life. I'm in this incarnation now, and time is running. Okay. Next, Lily. So glad you asked this question. Is that sense of movement, that proprioception I talked about? It's the term of one aspect of the sense of movement anyway. It's a huge background awareness that we usually take for granted. All right. Fidgeting, jumping, skipping, running, all of that stuff, making a circle, hopping, we call it gross motor, I suppose, when we're trying to assess it, if we decide we want to assess it. But the sense of movement is also that thing that I talked about. It's part of that thing that I talked about where we throw ourselves forward as we get older and we bring our bodies with us. In other words, I know I'm going to go to my son's house and I'm going to bring my body to my son's house. But there's more to it than that. It's just how we operate in the world. So there's a sense of movement, and then there's the sense of balance, okay? That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. It gives the sense, but this says this sense gives us the possibility of a point of view. This is a basis of attention as well, as a unique way of being there. We are able to see the world in a unique and particular way. Getting children to attend to a moment or task is a challenge, and that's part of the sense of balance, believe it or not. Now, there's something that I saw that I think, I'm going to stop for a second and just relate this anecdotally because it was very interesting to me, and it was part of a meeting I was in. What happened was someone asked one of the others to go forward and begin to read in front of the rest of us out of, something, a book. Read this book. And then my partner, the person who was doing this, said, okay, now anytime you feel like you want to tell us to be quiet, you feel free to do that. And then he started talking to me. We started talking. Yeah. So the woman was trying to read this beautiful passage. And we were saying things like, oh yeah, she's got these great pants on today. Doesn't she look good? Don't you think she's reading well? And we were talking back and forth to each other. And finally she said, could you be quiet? Or could you listen? And that's what she said. Could you listen? And the fellow said, well, I am. Because this is how people listen now. Like they're looking at a screen all the time. Okay? Not like there's a person in front of them, like they're listening to a screen. So this is because we're always looking at screens, right? There's a computer screen. I'm looking at, how many screens am I looking at right now? I'm looking at you guys. I'm looking at my little computer right down here. If I had a phone, I'd probably be looking at the phone right now. There's 3 screens in front of me. This is how we listen now. We listen like we're listening to a screen, which I find that really interesting, because that goes to the senses. I'm sorry, but that goes to the senses, and we're dealing with that with children right now. And when I say we're dealing with that with children right now, I do not mean, oh, and isn't it annoying for the teacher? That's not what I mean at all. I mean that is a human being in front of me who has an atrophied capacity that we need to heal in a way. We need to heal this capacity to see another living, breathing human being that they're sort of, honoring. The I and the thou gesture is what that is. I and thou. You speak. I hear you. I see you breathe. I see you blink. Yeah. I read your face, whatever. And then I wait. And then I say something, and you see me. You honor what I'm saying. So you see, it's not really saying, gosh, the children, they just oh, it's so annoying. They don't listen proper. That's not what I mean at all. There's a healing that has to go on with that sense. Okay. And that has to do, strangely enough, with the balance.
The kids these days seem to have a unique ability to do that while they're doing 3 other things at the same time. They can hear, they can listen while they're on the computer, and while they're also texting on their phone, and they're doing, God knows what. And they are hearing you.
They are
in the other room.
They're hearing you, but there's the I and thou thing. I think that's the thing I'm trying to sort of get across. This list is only giving me the first 4, and it goes around to the sense of ego. So let me see if I can find the rest of them. Okay. The first 4 are important. What do you think about those 4 anyway, Lily?
Well, yeah, that's great. I think that there is a lot of senses that we have that we don't know about. So that's why I was hoping that we can get into those that are not.
Yeah, I'm going to at least read the other 8, and we can talk about them if you want to. I just don't have the data in front of me that I might want. Touch, life, movement, balance. Then we get smell. We get some of the ordinary ones: smell, taste.
Yeah.
While you were presenting those, and if I can just take this time while you're looking for the additional ones to share that. The sense of life, which I also kind of saw as my sense of self, my real self, inside or exterior to this holographic creation called the body, and then the sense of movement, because during the last year or so, one thing that I've been extremely cognizant of is the part of me that is not my body. That it's almost like this body is a gift. The body is a series of atoms that vibrate, at a frequency to magnetically stick together, so to speak, or stay close to one another to create this body so that I can ride inside of this vehicle and enjoy this thing that's called the human experience. And I am becoming so much more aware of the me that is not the body, to the point where I feel myself, my life. I feel the movement that you're talking about when I project this self, this I don't know what the soul, I don't have the right word for it, but the part of me that is the me that exists inside this capped jar, I feel it, and I can sense it when it's moving out. I even feel like sometimes I'm glowing. I can't see it, but I feel the sense of it. I feel that I'm interacting with the electromagnetic field outside of myself, and I can feel myself projecting outward. And I can feel not just my thoughts and my imagination, but the essence of me. I can feel all of those things in various sensory experiences projecting out and beyond. Whether it's the imagination would be more of a dreamlike projection outwards of what I may wish. The thought is, a projection of words inside your head or spoken verbally towards the ultimate manifestation. And the part of me that is me feels more immediate, like in that present moment, I feel its expansion. It's almost like I'm in the body and I'm aware of being in the body, but I'm expanded outside of the body at the same time.
Yeah, Steiner would call that your higher self.
Yeah, my higher self. I'm trying to, I mean, everybody's got a different.
Looking for a word for that, right? So.
Right, the higher self, the part of me that is me, that's agreed to come inside this really great gift of an experience.
Exactly.
And I enjoy that. I perceive those as sensory experiences, just not the senses that we've given labels to.
Right. So let me give you a really quick list. I'll do this list really quick, and then we can try to talk about it. The middle senses are the ones we know about, pretty much. Smell, taste, warmth is a sense. The sense of warmth and vision. The higher senses, he says, are hearing. How about that? Language, concept, and ego. That's the circle. 1 through 12, with 1 being the sense of touch and 2 being the sense of ego, only meaning understanding this, or only meaning understanding yourself as a higher self, and Lisa as her higher self, and you, Barbara, as you're recognizing. That's how he uses the word ego. He doesn't use it the way that Freud used the word ego, which is kind of an unfortunate thing in my view. But yeah, so that's the 12th sense. So those are the 12 senses, Lily.
Can I just say something for a second?
Yeah.
One of the things I've learned about Barbara, I call her the queen of coincidence. And I would even call at this point the ability to see and acknowledge and work with coincidences in our lives could even be called a sense in itself. I don't know which one of those people that may fall into.
Maybe that's the conductor of the orchestra, Lisa. She's got all 12 of them in her hands.
We need to follow. And they're the signs that, okay, this is, you've put your intent out there, you've used your imagination, that's the path you've set forth. And it's coincidences that lead you, the little crumbs along the way that say, okay, you're on the right path.
To me, it feels like those synchronicities confirm I'm connected.
Yeah, but it seems that's a sense that's atrophied in many of us, I think.
Yeah.
We don't anymore. But it's one that you have, Barbara, finely tuned.
Well, I think it's become a much poorer world for us not knowing about all of these senses anymore. And I don't believe for a second that it's a situation where we're just now discovering this for the first time, because I think that what's happened is that we've been disconnected very intentionally and deliberately and thoroughly and completely by an outside force from who we were to begin with, which is one of the reasons that I think one of the things I talk about, and that's sort of neither here nor there, I suppose, but one of the things I talk about lately a lot is radical thinking and radical questions, asking radical questions and doing radical thinking, because it's about kicking each other out of bed now, waking each other up, you know what I mean? Because the hour is kind of late in a way. And so if we do some seriously radical questioning and radical thinking, people can snap awake just like that. You know that it's happened to us probably countless times. So radical think, and I think we probably at one time were the masters of these 12 senses. And it's probably not such a long journey to become the masters of these 12 senses again. I don't think.
I think that's part of what we're doing here right now is to master them again.
It is. It is.
Which gets me to
being willing to consider the possibility. Just keeping an open mind so that you are willing to consider all possibilities. And that allows them then to stream in. And some of them resonate with you and some of them don't. But you're still keeping that window open so that the breeze can blow through.
So Lily, what do you think about the things that I just
Yeah,
I'm curious.
you know, there is some of those senses that I think are a little bit more heightened in me than others. Like my sense of hearing, I hear frequency, and everything what I hear, I then, you know, process with my spirit. And so for me, hearing is a very sensitive thing. I can hear the frequency and the origin of that energy through voice, through that frequency. What I want, because I'm working on that, you know, including all of our body senses into sort of bundle up into one and harmonize all of it with our spirit, with our own spirit, I guess, which you guys were talking about. You call it a higher self. To me, that's our spirit. That's our life force that is within us. That's coming from internal creation source. That's internal. That's us. And then everything else we're externalizing. And so we're externalizing and creating our external world through our bodies and through all the senses. And all the senses, what I call, it's our whole body intelligence. Is just not one thing, like a mind or just that, or touch, or the word. It is all of it in oneness. And, you know, I've at one point or another there was a time when my sense of touch was so heightened, when I could go and touch a leaf on the tree, and it would just communicate with my body. My whole body will vibrate what the energy of that tree that I'm touching. But where I am right now is I'm trying to figure out how to bring all of that in one and have it within your whole body, being controlled through your spirit, through your life force. And then all of it is at once. And so you become this whole being where you can process everything as your spirit, externalizing and creating your external world through all of the senses that you have. Because even like you said, you know, there is a sense of ego, and you kind of went into that, saying that, you know, it's not just ego. You know, what to me is even ego, which is our mind, it's got to be part of us, of all of that, because our mind still belongs to us, our ego still belongs to us, and it has a place in the whole body intelligence, in the whole body energetics.
Right.
And I think going into the future, creating and learning how to be the creators of our own reality, we got to understand that everything that we feel, everything that is coming from within us is part of us. And for that, harmonize it and balance it with our, as you call it, higher self. I call it a spirit.
Right. You know what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that Michael Monk would do in practice is switching the senses up. So trying to tune yourself to hear with your sense of touch, or see with your ear, or, you know, just try and activate them to do things in a different way. And that kind of training, I think, is what opens you up to becoming totally sensory, you know, so that you can hear, see, taste, touch, and smell from all of your senses.
Right.
But it takes practice.
Yeah, I was actually experimenting with that a little bit. I would lay down with one of my cats, and I would have the cat really close to me, and I would project a feeling. And there would come a point where I could not tell where I ended and the cat began. And when I would project this feeling, which was usually like joy or happiness or love or something nice to make the cat feel good, I could tell that the cat was perceiving it by the expression or the relaxation or the various things at these different moments, which I thought was fascinating. And I now also have been noticing, and Lily was talking about hearing, I'm noticing that certain frequencies are finding me, almost like I'm being matched on the external world with what I'm feeling or thinking internally. And I'm getting the indicator of that by a frequency, and it's usually a sound. And I can sometimes it's a sound that anyone would be able to hear, but maybe just not be paying attention to, like a chime. Other times it's literally I hear a or a tone in my head that seems to be matching it. And I also feel that that's projecting outwardly as much as it's projecting inwardly. So my senses, I feel like, are beginning to intermingle with the world around me, and it's all kind of becoming one interaction. And I'm attracting and noticing that I'm attracting these things back to me, and also being able to express them outwardly, and being noticed or picked up by outside sources.
I just want to interject really quickly right now and tell you that I'm going to now be using my sense of hearing very acutely, because the same thing has just happened to me that happened to me the other night, which is I've lost your visual. But that's okay, because I can hear you, and I'm sure you can. I'm assuming you can see me. So
we can see you.
Okay, well, there you go, Lily. And it's going to make it hard for me to pick up visual cues and not interrupt you, but I'm going to try. One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking is, the sense of hearing. Do you think being clairaudient comes into that sense of hearing sphere?
I think we might have actually lost Lily for the.
Oh, really? Oh, God. Okay. Well, I was thinking, because it's bigger than this, it's the next step for us into the etheric world that we're talking about, which is, having our higher self be able to look over our physical self, and, being aware that there is a higher self that we can watch ourselves with, and all of that. I think something like clairaudience becomes part of the sense of hearing. I think that she was talking about going into the future. Well, okay. Is that part of this? Is that a heightened sense of movement? We talked about seeing ourselves, going to the store. I see myself at the store, and I bring my body with me. Is part of that sense also seeing into the future? I mean, these are
interesting.
Yeah. But
Don't we call that paving the way?
What,
Lisa?
Don't we call that paving the way?
Yes, you sure could. Oh, I don't like that I can't see you, but that's okay. Okay, anyway. I mean, those were just thoughts I had when Lily was talking, that, these senses that we all have, which we consider to be sort of paranormal in a way, are not paranormal. They're totally normal. And I think that they could be grouped within these 12 senses, properly understood.
I agree. I think they're perfectly normal. It's a natural state.
Yeah.
We will have Lily back. She'll be back in about 5 minutes. But before she does come back, just the premise of sort of getting down to the premise of the show. We're at an important historical moment, obviously, in creation and on this planet. And this show started as a way and a means for us to come together and create a vision, a collective vision for how we want to live, what we want the world to look like. And I think if everybody that's here at this time, they hear with a purpose, they hear with a real mission to play a part in this. And most of us don't know what that is. So, or we have a vague idea, or we feel a passion to do something, but it's buried under 3D obligations, something. Or we maybe so many things that we can't quite, hone in on one. So I was wondering whether or not the first thing that we should do to kick this off, before we even get to looking at kind of what we collectively hold for the world as a vision, is to maybe focus on what our role is here. And there is a statement that I came across, and it's really simple, which is, let me now express the divine idea. And the term divine idea simply meaning the very vision and idea that I had for myself when I came here, my purpose and mission, in my mind, body, and affairs. So let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. And then using these senses that we've talked about, and the sense of synchronicity and coincidence as well, to allow ourselves to sense that coming into form and coming to us or through us. Barbara, you'll be here next week. So how do you feel about kicking it off with that, so that when we come back together next week, maybe people will have a clearer idea of what it is they want to envision for the world and for themselves. So by even just starting off with that one. You're muted.
Oh.
You're still muted, darling. Biggie, can you try and unmute her at your end, please? There we go.
Thank you. I'm like pushing the button and nothing's happening. I think that's a great idea. It's foundational, and it's a place that we can grow up and out from.
I just want to ask the chat room too what they think about that. And I'll type it in. Yep. But we will do this as a collective. We'll be saying it out loud together. Yeah, let me now. I'm going to type. Sorry, I'm taking a moment to type this into the chat room. Divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. There we go. So we'll wait for Lily to come back, and then we could start with that, because I'd also like her to maybe talk us through how she connects herself to center, because we've all got our own techniques for doing that, but getting centered, getting into that 0 point, and connecting with the planet. I know she's got her own technique for that. I've got mine. You've probably got yours. And just sort of sharing ideas and seeing what feels right for everybody.
That idea that you just expressed was a magician idea. Can I say? You know how the magician holds the seeds of his imbalance inside him. The idea, can you hear me? The idea that we allow ourselves, or two things. We have to allow ourselves to freely manifest our mission, which means not getting in our own way. Do you know what I mean? Not overthinking it, because I think a lot of us tend to do that. On the one hand, so we have to be very free and not nail it down too much and let it come. While at the same time, as we get older and as we get more cognizant, we certainly want to do what you just described, which is identify what our purpose is, identify what we're meant to be doing, own that, and go forward with that. And so, see, there's the balance. There's keeping your balance on the tightrope right there. You just described the magician perfectly with that.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. No, not yet. Okay. Jeffrey, I know you're in the background. You don't have to turn your camera on, but you've done similar work with Lily. How do you feel about sharing your process?
Oh, can you hear me? Is the mic fine?
Yeah, you're a little soft.
All right. It really just comes from kind of your upper belly. It's you just listen to it as far as if you're getting a tingle of excitement or dread. It's really that simple. You're just centering yourself in your center, connected to the earth. That Lily and I are a little similar, but she goes deeper. But it's really that simple for me.
There was a process that for me also started with the tarot that evolved into asking my, I guess I would say back in my New Age days, my higher self, where my body would physically move. I would ask for a yes or a no, and I sort of used my own body as a pendulum. And it would get moved back and forth or left to right. And that evolved into just being able to center. And whenever I made a statement of truth, there was this expansive feeling. And if it wasn't truth, it was a contracting feeling.
Yes.
And I was able to ask myself questions and just focus in on that kind of heart chakra spot, or the higher heart, and feel expansion or contraction, and have a complete conversation with my own being. Ask questions and get answers, make statements and feel the truth or the inaccuracy of it. And I guess I just keep working on that process and refining it.
Well, that's another sense, and it's almost a gift. Like, I think it was 25, 26 years ago, all of a sudden, when there was an untruth in front of me, it kind of clattered, it sort of hovered in the air in a way and clattered to the ground like a trash can lid, I think that's another sense, or at least a more highly developed aspect of one of the senses that we were talking about.
I think a lot of the people that I'm associated with and connected with over the last few years have really honed that skill, that sense of being able to feel the energetics of the written word, of the spoken word, and identify untruths a lot easier.
Yeah.
They are jarring, energetically jarring.
They are.
Either that or the other extreme of just dead.
Yeah.
But there's an absence of energy almost. You
Yeah.
can go to a website, read a blog post, and just know from the opening sentence that it's bullshit.
Exactly. Oh, there you see, you're reading my mind right now, because I was just thinking some people call it the built-in bullshit detector. So, and there's the word you just said it. So,
yeah, feeling, because the words might sound amazing and beautiful and loving, but you can feel the energy that they're writing on, and it's contradictory, or it's jarring, or it's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lie seems to have a corporeality almost, in a way. It just sort of would fall to the ground in front of me in a way. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah. For me, it's also just simply a feeling. And it's like right here. I don't know if you call that the solar plexus, but it's just right there, kind of in the center of my chest, in between my rib bones. I just can feel it. Something feels, I don't care, like you were saying, you're reading something and it's supposed to have one intent, that's what they're projecting, but but you can tell, you can feel that that is not the energy that is exuding from that piece, whatever it may be. So for me, it's a feeling. And I can, over the years, I've gone from having to meditate to get, or thinking I had to meditate to get myself into that place, a more formal meditation, to then a more informal meditation where I could just relax, say even about doing dishes or something, to now I can just be there. It's just a feeling. I can just take myself there.
Have you noticed as well that when you go through your life like this, which is a bit on the clairvoyant side, ladies, if I can say that, people being who they are, very fallible, beautiful, wonderful, you know, mixed bags of everything. Very often you can sense, or if something comes to you that's like a revelation or a knowing or something of something, and you just have to let it go by. Yeah. Even though you know it's an untruth, or you know it's not quite kosher, or because people are living in what they're living in from moment to moment. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? You can't, it's like you can't, gosh. It's like if you have the ability, if you had the ability to read everybody's mind every second of every day, you really have to filter that out, kind of thing. But people's motives, I think, are extremely volatile things, and everything that they do and say, every gesture that they make, has a truth or an untruth to it, to some degree. And so sometimes you just kind of have to let things go by. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Okay. So
otherwise, your day is full of confrontation, to be honest.
Yeah, you can't live in this world if you don't. Yeah. But I mean, your sense can get that sense. You can get that sensitive to it. I'll be walking along with someone and I'll have this sort of revelation, and then but you know, you got to keep, you're on a nice walk, so you keep walking. And you give yourself some time to decide how important it really is, you know?
And while I've got a minute, I just want to, Barbara, you're muted still. Go for it.
What I was trying to say was that the more aware of these kinds of abilities that I'm becoming, the more of those revelations you get. And it used to be I would get a revelation and I would be excited and I would want to write it down and I would want to explore all about it, you know, and then and I realized you lose living, because you're, you know, so you have them and you have them and you have them and you have them, and there comes a point where you allow them to pass through you, and then you enjoy them in that moment and you let them go, because you don't need to be absorbed by them. There's for every one you feel, there are 5 more waiting to pass through you, and you don't want to miss them either. Right.
It's like, you know, this is great, because this is what it's talking to you too, because this is what it's like to live as a clairvoyant. You cannot, I mean, you got a life to live too. And people don't, I think people forget, people don't, how can I put this? People don't realize when they live with someone like that, that's actually what's going on all the time, that you're constantly just making choices about, you know, no, I'm ignoring, I have a life, you're there you are, aren't you great? Do you know what I'm saying? You just, yeah, well, you do know what I'm saying, obviously, because you just expressed that. But yeah, I mean.
Well, and sometimes I used to feel an obligation or a need or a desire to share that with everyone. If they only knew, I've got to tell them, because, you know, I just had this experience, and, you know, because it's an experience, they can understand it as more of a truth. And then you realize, no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that at all. I can just enjoy it and move on.
Right. That's and also realizing, you know, I used to say to myself, look, they've got their angel too, you know, let them be where they are. You know, you don't have to verbalize every, you know, thing that you get all the time. So it's, yeah, That's just the inner discipline, I suppose. It probably belongs to one of those senses. I can't begin to think right now which one it would be. But I might think about that, yeah.
Okay, we've got Lily back. So Lily, if you can hear me, just wanted to ask you, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to bring up the logo of the show that shows our sigil as something to focus on, to give us something to focus on. So you're not just watching our heads as we do what we do. And we're going to get to a center and connect with our planet. And then those of us who are on the call, and I would like everybody listening, if you're not sitting in a cafe or out in public and you're concerned about what people think, to also speak out loud. And we're going to say a phrase, a sentence, which will get us back into a space of helping us all remember what our purpose and mission is. And then go forward for the next week with the intent to allow that to show itself, to be mindful of the synchronicities, to be mindful of the coincidences, to follow our intuition and those strange little nudges that say, go here, and it doesn't make sense to your brain necessarily, but your intuition's telling you to go that way. To see everybody that you pass and cross as a messenger. You know, everybody's got something for us, you know. Every song on the radio, everything that pops in it, be mindful, you know, be alert, be in the moment, and take notice and see where we're all at the end of the week. So I just wanted to ask you if you could share with the audience your process for getting into center, and then we'll incorporate that.
Oh, I don't have any techniques. I just am. I go into my sort of gut and try to be there and express through my spirit. And then anything and everything that I feel from that space, from that center, then is what my spirit is expressing. I don't know if that helps. I don't have any techniques.
Well, Lisa, if I could, since I went from formal meditation to now just being able to be there, for me, it's a feeling, and the feeling is a feeling of joy or happiness or something, and that feeling I can feel here, and once I feel that feeling, then I'm there. So whether a person needs to close their eyes and focus on something that makes them feel good, or just a thoughtless environment, or just allow themselves to feel a certain feeling, then they should be able to, whether it's above their stomach or in their solar plexus or outside of themselves, wherever that feeling is, then you know when you're there. Maybe focus on a feeling.
Okay, we'll do. But before we do this, I need a quick bathroom break. So I'm gonna run away for 30 seconds. So that's okay, Lily. No need to apologize. I love what you said, actually, because we overcomplicate things. We really do, you know, and it's really not that complicated. So yeah, I would be back in.
I just never meditated, so I am being always who I am. Whatever, it doesn't matter what I do. If I am present in my spirit, then I am fully on and connected.
I think you're very lucky to start there, to know enough about yourself to be there. For someone like myself, I thought there had to be a process. So you start exploring, okay, what does this person say? How does that person tell you to get there? And you try out different processes until you find one that gets you where you want to be. And that's when you realize you don't really need one at all. So for all the people, say in chat, or who may be listening to this on the archive, who hear this more esoteric way conversation of us saying, well, we're just there, they probably are the ones that might need some kind of a process or instruction so that they can eventually get to where we are. But it's a knowing. You have to, some of us have to go try processes to finally just know what works for us. What do you think about that, Lisa?
Yeah. Well, I've got a little process, so let's try it. I did put the sentence in the chat room that's on Lisa M. Harrison, and I've put it in here in the Zoom one, if you want to bring it up. So because I really want us to say it out loud. The power of the spoken word can't be underestimated. And that's another thing to be mindful of, what you're saying out loud all the time.
Now I can't see it, but I will be with you in spirit.
Give us something to focus on. You guys see that?
You're back. What? Oh, magic. Who did that? Was that you,
well,
Lily?
No. So you're seeing the image?
Yes. There you are. You just decided to come back, baby.
Cool.
Thank you. Except I just see your picture. I don't see your person.
That's okay. I've turned my camera on.
Oh.
Now. So the way I like to do this is just to get comfortable firstly. Make sure your body's relaxed. Take some nice deep breaths. And bring your attention into your heart center, your solar plexus. Just breathe into it. And with every breath, kind of expand out into more and more of your body. And then start to feel beyond your body. Feel the atmosphere around you. And then start to take your focus down through your body into your feet. And imagine roots starting to grow out of the base of your feet. Down in through the floor or the earth, wherever you are. And start to go down through the layers, through the soil, through the rock, through minerals, down through layers of crystal, until you find the core of this planet. For me, I see it as a ruby red crystal. And wrap those roots around this core and see the roots of everybody else that's joining in with us, also wrapping around. It is connecting us to the planet, to the heart of the planet, and to each other. And the first thing this planet wants to do is send you her energy and allow yourself to feel it and allow it to come up the roots and through the bottom of your feet as she sends you all her love, that unconditional maternal love, her gratitude, her protection, her support. And you can send back to her whatever you wish. Love, gratitude. And just allow the energy to keep flowing back and forth. Allow it to come up and settle in your heart center. And know that you are connected to everybody that is participating, both now and in the perceived future. There is no such thing. We're all together in this at once, in the now. And either in your head or out loud, preferably out loud. And if Barbara and Clara and Jeff, anybody else would like to say this out loud with me? Let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. Let me now
express the divine idea
in my
mind, my body,
and affairs. Let me now
express the divine idea
in my mind,
my body, and my affairs.
Let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. And know that what you're asking for is for your true purpose, your true mission, right here, right now, to reveal itself to you, to know it, and to be guided and shown the steps to express it. And they will be easy. The path will be easy. It's what you're meant to do. And everything that you need in order to do it will show itself. If there's something you need to learn how to do, when you need to learn how to do it, the means will be given. If there are resources, if there are people, they will come. Whatever you need to support you in your mission will be there. Effortless. Let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. Your only job at this point is to be mindful and to take notice. Follow your intuition, to see the synchronicities. Let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. And say thank you to yourself, to that greater part of you, to the planet, and to everybody that is participating and supporting you in your mission as you support them in theirs. Let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body, and affairs. Take a deep breath. Bring your consciousness back to the center. Shake your body out a little bit. And welcome back.
For me, the coolest part of that was my feet are planted on the ground, but the ground disappeared. I could not feel it any longer. There was no ground.
It's very healing for the earth, by the way. It's not just us.
Yeah,
It's mutual.
Loved it.
Yes, what about you? How was that?
It definitely could feel the group.
Oh yeah. Whoosh.
Yeah. Very
Some nice, nice comments in the chat room. So that's our job for the next week. Follow the synchronicities. Be mindful, and allow our purpose to just show itself. And I know there's, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I feel like these what I'm doing is my purpose right now. Sometimes I feel like I'm kidding myself, but.
Oh, looks like she may have frozen.
That's internet is unstable.
There is one thing I wanted to ask Clara. Where can people pick up your book?
Oh, well, you can do Amazon. As a matter of fact, I should say this since I've got an Aussie on board here. I had to actually make a Shopify channel because Amazon.com, lovely megalith that it is, made the decision to only offer our book in Kindle form in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And we believe that's because Kindle is highly changeable. It's very easily gotten into, and there was neither one of us have ever experienced that before. It's been extremely difficult to get our work into the English language markets, although Dangerous Imagination is doing really, really well but for years we've tried to get our voice to be heard in Australia and New Zealand, and it has been a real wall. It's been a real wall. So that was one of the most exciting things for me, was that Lisa contacted me from Australia. I thought, gadzooks, this is amazing. Finally a voice in Australia that can, but she did also say to me that very few people still to this day are doing this alternative stuff in Australia. I mean, and there's a reason for that. There's this is magic as well, but it's a block. It's Giordano Bruno talked about that sort of thing and how magic can be used to block information and things like that. So, but I just don't think there's so much of this is now in the collective conscious. I don't think it can be blocked. So off we go. The path into Oz is the door is flung open, Lisa. Off we go. So what I had to do was make a Shopify channel for anybody who could not get it via Amazon. And it is indie-kitchen.myshopify.com. And that's for anybody in Australia, New Zealand, or Canada, or anybody who just refuses to deal with Amazon. There are people who just refuse to deal with Amazon, and that's fine. Or you can get it at Amazon.com. The German translation has just come out in the last week or two as well. And you can get that at hesperverlag.de. I think it's hesper-verlag if you're a German speaker. Harold did the translation. It's not called Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation, because that does not translate. It's called something else. Go look up, you can look us up in German language edition if you need to, or hesperverlag.de. That's our German publisher.
Are there links to all of that on your website?
There are links to that in Vortex. I have a magazine called Vortex Courage. Well, it's called Vortex. You can get there by going to www.vortexcourage.me. And you will see I am constantly putting links up. Or Suzanne Marr also has just put these things up on Bye Bye Blue Sky, if you know that blog. Trying to think where else. My Facebook, Clara St Louis, you can get it there. Links are there. I try to make sure they're everywhere.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
And
And
Lisa,
also, anybody who wants to connect with Barbara, you can do so at Facebook, the Coincidence Cafe page.
Hey, come
Cool.
visit me at Coincidence Cafe.
Cool.
Have a cup of coincidence on me.
Lovely.
Well, thank you, Cara, for joining us for this what I would call going home show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to Lily, who I know is already gone, but thank you, Lily, and thank you, Jeff. Barbara,
Yes.
so much fun.
I know. I can't wait till next week. Is it next week yet?
Yeah,
And
let's have
everybody come back and bring your stories of what happened between now and next week. We'd love to
And
hear them.
we still actually have the Collective Imagination Facebook page, which is a great place to go and post any little updates from what's gone on over the course of the week for you. So if something happens, please go there and let us know what it is.
Great. Well, thank you very much for
So
having
I'm
me,
going to
ladies.
say bye for now then.
Bye, Biggie.
Bye, everybody.
all.
Bye, girls. Bye, chaps.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition Downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows, which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN on the air, public funding is needed. Please donate to CCN's Network Support Fund or become a monthly pledger. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.